Zane Grey, Wonder of the Wasteland, Chapter 15, Part 4. That is well. Now will you help me carry in breakfast? Unreality was not unusual to Adam. The desert had as many unrealities, illusions, and specters as it had natural and tangible things. But while he sat opposite to this fascinating woman, whose garments exuded some subtle fragrance of perfume, whose shadowed beautiful face shone like a cameo against the drab wall of the brush shack, he was hard put to it to convince himself of actuality. She ate daintily, but she was hungry. The gray gown fell in graceful folds around the low stone seat. The rude table between them was a box, narrow and uneven. "Shall I try to get Veery to eat?" she asked presently. "That depends. On the desert after a collapse, we're careful with food and water." "Will you look at him?" Adam followed her as she swept aside a flap of the canvas partition. This room was larger and lighter. It had an aperture for a window. Adam's quick glance took this in, and then the two narrow beds of blankets raised on brush cots. Veery lay on the one farther from the door. His pallid brow and unshaven face appeared drawn into terrible lines, which of course Adam could not be sure were permanent or the result of the collapse in the valley. He inclined, however, to the conviction that Veery's face was the distorted reflection of a tortured soul. Surely he had been handsome once. He had deep-set black eyes, a straight nose, and a mouth that betrayed him, despite its being half hidden under a mustache. Adam, keen and strung in that moment as he received his impressions of Veery, felt the woman's intensity as if he had been studying her instead of her husband. How singular women were. How could it matter to her what opinion he formed of her husband? Adam knew he'd been powerfully prejudiced against this man, but he held in stern abeyance all judgment until he could look at him. For long years, Adam had gazed into the face of the desert. Outward appearance could not deceive him. As the cactus revealed its ruthless nature, as the tiny inch-high flower bloomed in its perishable but imperative proof of beauty, as well as life, as the long flowing sands of the desert betrayed the destructive design of the universe, so the face of any man was the image of his soul. And Adam recoiled instinctively, if not outwardly, at what he read in Veery's face. "You're in pain?" queried Adam. "Yes," came the husky whisper, and Veery put a hand on his breast. "It's sore here." "It's sore here," said Adam, feeling Veery. "You've breathed poisoned air down in the valley. It acts like ether. You just lie quiet for a while. I'll do the work around camp." "Thank you," whispered Veery. The woman followed Adam outside and gazed earnestly up at him, unconscious of herself, with her white face closer than it had ever been to him and full in the sunlight. It struck Adam that the difference between desert flowers and the faces of beautiful women was one of emotion. How much better to have the brief hour of an unconscious flower wasting its fragrance on the desert air. "He's ill, don't you think?" queried the woman. "No, but he does recover slowly. A man must have a perfect heart and powerful lungs to battle against the many perils in this country. But Veery will get over this all right." "You never give up, do you?" she inquired. "Come to think of it, that I guess I never do," replied Adam. "Such a spirit is worthy of a better cause. You are doomed here to failure." "Well, I'm not infallible, that's for certain, but you can never tell. The fact of my standing here is proof of the overcoming of almost impossible things. I can't make Death Valley habitable for you, but I can lessen the hardships." "How long have you been here?" "Several months. but it's years to me. Who brought you down? How did you get here? We've had different guides. The last were Shoshone Indians who accompanied us across a range of mountains, then a valley, and last over the Panamints. They left us here. I rode a horse. Barry walked the last stages of this journey to Death Valley, from which there will be no return. We turned horse and burros loose, and I haven't seen them since. Are these Shoshone supposed to visit you occasionally? Yes, Barry made a deal with them to come every full moon. We've had more supplies than we need. The trouble is that Veery has the inclination to eat, but I have not the skill to prepare food wholesomely under these rough conditions, so we almost starved. Well, let me take charge of camp duties. You nurse your husband and don't neglect yourself. It's the least you can do. You'll have a hardship and suffering enough, even at best. You've suffered, I can see, but not physically, and you never knew what hardship meant until you got into these desert climbs. If you live, these things will cure you of any trouble. They'll hardly cure Veery, for he has retrograded. Most men in the desert follow the line of least resistance. They sink. But you will not. And let me tell you, there are elemental pangs of hunger, of thirst, of pain that are blessings in disguise. You'll learn what rest is, and sleep and loneliness. People who live as you have lived are lopsided. What do they know of life close to the earth? Any other life is false. Cities, swarms of men and women, riches, luxury, poverty, these were not in nature's scheme of life. Mrs. Veery, if anything can change your soul, it will be the desert. Ah, Sir Wansville, so you have philosophy as well as chivalry, she replied with the faint accent that seemed to be mockery of herself. Change my soul if you can, wanderer of the desert. I am a woman, and a woman is symbolical of change. Teach me to cook, to work, to grow strong, to endure, to fight, to look up at those dark hills whence cometh your strength. I am here in Death Valley. I will never leave it in body. My bones will mingle with the sands and molder to dust, but my soul, that black gulf of doubt, of agony, of terror, of hate, change that if you can. These tragic, eloquent words chained Adam to Death Valley as if they had been links of steel, and thus began his long sojourn there. Work or action was always necessary to Adam. They had become second nature. He planned a brush shelter from the sun, a sort of outside room adjoining the shack, a stone fireplace and table and seats, a low stone wall to keep out blowing sand, and a thick, heavy stone fence between the shack and the slope of the sliding rocks. When these tasks were finished, there would be others, and always there would be the slopes to climb, the valley to explore. Idleness in Death Valley was a forerunner of madness. There must be a reserve fund of long work and exercise, so that when the blazing, leaden-hazed middays of August came, with idleness imperative, there would be both physical force and unclouded mind to endure them. The men who succumbed to madness in this valley were those who had not understood how to combat it. That day passed swiftly, and the twilight hour seemed to have less of gloom and forbidding intimations. That might well have been due to his eternal hope. Mrs. Veery showed less gravity and melancholy, and not once did she speak with bitterness or passion. She informed Adam that Veery had improved. 2 more days slipped by, and on the third, Veery got up and came forth into the sunlight. Adam happened to be at work nearby. He saw Veery gaze around at the improvements that had been made and say something about them to his wife. He looked a man who should have been in the prime of life. Approaching with slow gait and haggard face, he addressed Adam. "You expect pay for this puttering around?" "No," replied Adam shortly. "How's that?" Well, when men are used to the desert as I am, they lend a hand where it's needed. That's not often. But I didn't want any such work done round my camp. I know, and I excuse you because you're ignorant of desert ways and needs. The question of excuse for me is offensive. Adam, rising abreast of the stone wall he was building, fixed his piercing eyes upon this man. Mrs. Veery stood a little to one side, but not out of range of Adam's gaze. Did a mocking light show in her shadowy eyes? The doubt, the curiosity in her expression must have related to Adam. That slight, subtle something about her revealed to Adam the inevitableness of disappointment in store for him if he still entertained any hopes of amenable relations with Veery. We all have to be excused sometimes, said Adam deliberately. Now, I had to excuse you on the score of ignorance of the desert. You chose this place as a camp. It happens to be the most dangerous spot I ever saw. Any moment a stone may roll down that slope to kill you. Any moment the whole avalanche may start. That slope is an avalanche. It's my business where I camp, rejoined Veery. Were you aware of the danger here? I am indifferent to danger. But you are not alone. You have a woman with you. Manifestly, Veery had been speaking without weighing words and looking at Adam without really seeing him. The brooding shade passed out of his eyes, and in its place grew a light of interest that leaped to the crystal-cold clearness of a lens. You're a prospector, he asserted. No, I pan a little gold dust once in a while for fun, because I happened to cross it. You're no miner then, nor hunter, nor teamster. I've been a little of all you name, but I can't be called any one of them. You might be one of the robbers that infest these hills. I might be, only I'm not, declared Adam. The fire in his depths stirred restlessly, but he kept a cool, smothering control over it. He felt disposed to be lenient and kind toward this unfortunate man. If only the woman had not stood there with that half-veiled, mocking shadow of a doubt in her eyes. You're an educated man. I am, and I claim to be especially educated in the ways of the desert. And the ways of women, are they mysterious to you? Queried Veery with scorn. His interrogation seemed like a bitter doubt flung out of an immeasurable depth of passion. I confess that they are, replied Adam. I've lived a lonely life. Few women have crossed my trail. You don't marvelous your good fortune if you tell the truth. I would not lie to any man, returned Adam bluntly. Bah, men are all liars, and women make them so. You're hanging around my camp making a bluff of work. I deny that. Heaving these stones is work. You lift a few of them in this hot sun, and my packing you on my back for 10 miles over the floor of Death Valley, was that bluff? You saved my life, exclaimed the man, stung to passion. There seemed to be contending tides in him, a fight of old habits of thought, fineness of feeling against an all-absorbing and dominant malignancy. Man, I can't thank you for that. You've done me no service. I don't want or expect thanks. I was thinking of the effort it cost me. As a man who was once a gentleman, I do thank you, which is a courtesy due my past. But now that you have put me in debt for service I didn't want, why do you linger here? I wish to help your wife. Ah, that's frank of you. That frankness is something for which I really thank you, but you'll pardon me if I'm inclined to doubt the idealistic nature of your motive to help her. Adam pondered over this speech without reply. Words always came fluently when he was ready to speak, and he seemed more concerned over Viri's caustic bitterness than over his meaning. Then as he met the magnificent flash in Magdalene Viri's eyes, he was inspired into revelation of Viri's veiled hint and into a serenity he divined would be kindness to her pride. "Go ahead and help her," Viri went on. "You have my sincere felicitations. My charming wife is helpless enough. I never knew how helpless till we were thrown upon our own resources. She cannot even cook a potato. And as for baking bread in one of those miserable black ovens, stranger, if you eat some of it, I will not be long annoyed by your attentions to her." "Well, I'll teach her," said Adam. His practical response irritated Viri excessively. It was as if he wished to insult and inflame and had not considered a literal application to his words. "Who are you? What's your name?" he queried, yielding to a roused curiosity. "Wansfell," replied Adam. "Wansfell," echoed Viri. The name struck a chord of memory, a discordant one. He bent forward a little, at a point between curiosity and excitement. "Wansfell, I know that name. Are you the man who in this desert country is called Wansfell the Wanderer?" "Yes, I'm that Wansfell." "I heard a prospector tell about you," went on Viri, his haggard face now quickened by thought. "It was at a camp near a gold mine over here somewhere. I forget where, but the prospector said he had seen you kill a man named Mac something. McHugh. That's the name. Did he tell the truth?" "Yes, I'm sorry to say I killed Baldy McHugh. Or rather, to speak as I feel, I was the means by which the desert dealt McHugh the death justly due him." Viri now glowed with excitement, changing the man. "Somehow that story haunted me," he said. "I never heard one like it. This prospector told how you confronted McHugh in the street of a mining camp in front of a gambling hell, or maybe it was a hotel. You yelled like a demon at McHugh. He turned white as a sheet. He jerked his gun, began to shoot, but you bore a charmed life. His bullets didn't hit you, or if they did to no purpose, you leaped upon him. His gun flew one way, his hat another. Then you killed him with your hands. Is that true?" Adam nodded gloomily. The tale told vividly by this seemingly galvanized Viri was not pleasant, and the woman stood there transfixed with white face and tragic eyes. End of chapter 15, part 4.